Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of the Hot Girls Healing Podcast. I'm your host, Salenna Green. I'm extremely grateful to be here. I've been in my feelings pretty much since I started this podcast, and honestly, even before then, I'm keeping it a buck. But so today's episode is again extremely relevant to my life. Today we're going to be talking about exercising patience. If this is your first episode that you're joining me for, this is a podcast where I discuss anything and everything and how it relates to healing. Today I am joined by a guest who honestly was introduced to me through a friend that I've had, a long-term friend, one of those lifetime friends. And when I first, like, he literally never does this, by the way. He's never like, oh, you should talk to this person. They're cool and interesting. Like, because he know me, right? Like, and so, I was like, all right, let me see. And then as soon as we started talking, I was just like, oh, okay, no, like, why this makes sense. Like, there's a vibe here. And so I'm so grateful that you're here, and I'm so grateful to talk to you
Yes.
and just expand on the conversation that we already have had. Please introduce yourself to the wonderful healing community here.
Yes. Hi, healing community. Oh my gosh. Hi. I'm Shiaan Hardy. I'm the mutual. We have the mutual friend. Like, yes, it was right as we started talking. It was like, yeah, he did it. He did that big one with this one. He got it this time. We love that. But yeah, I work with that said friend, but I am also a full-time master's student at the University of Washington, getting my degree in child and adolescent psychology. Right? Look at me go.
Which is needed, okay.
Exactly. Um, and I'm trying to think what else. I don't know. I love the healing, everything about healing and just kind of like being who you are and accepting who you are and living life the way that you want to live it. It's just very, I love it. It hits different every time.
Yes. And the journey associated with doing those things has been everything I found.
Yeah.
Because it's been a constant practice of exercising patience.
Right.
Like, first of all, let me back up to the signs that I knew I needed to start exercising patience, because
Right.
there were signs.
Yes.
Let's talk about some of those signs.
Mhm.
For me,
Mhm.
I was very quick to frustration and quick to annoyance. Like, you weren't going to anger me, but am I frustrated? Am I annoyed with you very quickly?
Yes.
Those were two things that I found.
Mhm.
This is going to sound so bad.
No, my
I
God.
didn't like and not immediately being good at something. That was a big time for me that I needed to exercise.
Yes. Oh my Lord.
Because I found that I was like good at stuff right when I started doing it a lot of times.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so when I encountered something that I wanted to be good at,
Right.
but I wasn't immediately, that
Right.
was the time where I was like, okay, so what do you want to do then?
Exactly.
Is it
Right.
only about instant gratification?
Yeah.
You know? So what were some of the signs for you that maybe not that you needed to exercise patience, because I don't want to assume things about your life.
Right,
I'll
right.
be like me. But what were some signs, and what are signs for you when you're saying, okay, this is where patience comes in and
Yes.
exercising patience comes in?
Yes. No, I think that's like the best start when it comes to just navigating patience is that question. Like, so what do I need to see around me to know that, like, oh, I need to take a step back. Like, maybe I need to pause for a little bit. For me, it was recognizing the cycles and patterns that I had been in ever since I was a kid, with like having this dream, having a goal, but then only interacting with people or situations that I felt like I deserved, but they were not my goal. Like, I was talking with my friends about this recently, about this like dude that I was messing around with, whatever, but he was not my dream guy, right? Like he wasn't like the guy that I'm like, because my dream guy, this is gonna sound silly, but my dream dude is that Southern liberal man, like that I'm like, oh yes, I like the Southern charm, that vibe, but we care a lot about people type of thing. And this guy that I was so hung up on, and I was so impatient with, because I was like, why can't you just be what I need you to be? Like, why is this not working? Why am I always getting hurt here? Once I kind of went through that a second time with him, I was like, oh, maybe I'm not accepting reality right now. And I think that's like a huge part of patience, is accepting, just full acceptance of where you're at. Or at least I would say maybe that's like step one, full acceptance of where you're at, while also taking into account, what do you want moving forward? Like, is it worth it to wait it out with this person who is not, who you know you don't vibe with, you know this isn't what you want? Or is it worth it just to let that go and just be patient? You know what I mean? Be patient for what is to come in for you, you know?
Ooh, because yeah, that's another thing. Like, where are we applying the patience? Because we
Exactly.
all being patient somewhere for something.
Exactly.
Dang, that's another
Right.
level to it.
Yes, because I was even so with that situation, I was also putting that kind of like with work and job experiences that I've had, where I have my ultimate goal of being a child clinical psychologist, but I would only allow myself to apply to jobs that were entry level, like jobs that I like. I know I would get it because I know I have all those skills, but I'm not applying myself to jobs that are directly related to my goal because I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. So it's also just letting go of that. I wouldn't say letting go of the fear, but working through that fear and those insecurities and being like, you know what? Yeah, I might get rejected from this manager position, but I might not. Like, I also am overqualified to be in these lower level positions, if you will. Like, we gotta take these risks. I can't just keep playing
Yeah.
it safe.
And
So,
at that point, we got to discern what
mhm.
is patience and what is us just letting fear keep us from the thing,
Right.
or imposter syndrome keep us from the thing that we know we truly want while
Hmm.
we're not in alignment with what we said we wanted.
Exactly. Listen, it's like you're doing all this manifesting of this thing, but you're not doing anything to get over to this thing. Like, what are you're saying over here where it's safe, girl? If you don't get up,
Yeah, like how do you make sure that the way you are exercising patience is
hmm
actually working for your life, for
right,
your goals,
right,
and for where you're trying to get? That
yeah,
is huge.
exactly. And I
Huge.
think like first step is acceptance. Because okay, I know I had mentioned to you before that I was kind of looking into what a lot of the world religions say about patience, and I also started asking my family, and ultimately everyone has patience as a way of like accepting the external, just accept the environment that you're in, and like, or it's a matter of being patient with things that you can't control. And as I've been
Mm,
like kind of hearing what people are sharing with me about, oh, well, this is how I define patience, this is how I practice it. I've been recently, I've kind of been like, well, maybe that's why patience kind of fluctuates for a lot of people. And it's hard for some of us to kind of grasp it because we're so focused on having patience for things that we can't control instead of having patience for things that we can, like ourselves. Like, do you have
mm,
patience with yourself? Are you accepting of all that you are and where you're at right now? Are you accepting that your body is going to look the way it looks no matter the time? Like, like you have, it's
yes,
hard to explain, but it's like you have control over specific things, that's what we can be
yes.
focusing on, and practicing patience there. Because I feel like if you're doing it internally, it will reflect externally, you know?
Now we barely 10 minutes into the conversation. And I'm just like, yes, 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 yes to all of it.
Right.
Because it's that I hear exactly what you're saying, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
slight perspective shift. So I get why you're
Yeah.
saying like it's a
Yeah.
very slight shift in perspective, but what it does is it helps you to reclaim that power
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you're literally not only accepting where you are,
Mm-hmm.
accepting what you have control over, you're
Yeah.
accepting what you do not have control over, and you're letting all of that
Mm-hmm.
work for you through the way that you exercise patience. And
Exactly.
that is huge. Yeah, that's a huge perspective shift. Then
Right.
I'm going from saying, like, oh, like, it's almost like this inactive role that I'm playing when I'm just saying, well, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going to be patient.
Right.
I'm just going
Right.
to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait. Eventually, the thing is going to happen. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen to me, around me.
Right.
The other way is saying this thing will happen through me than by me
Right.
in the
Right.
perfect time.
Ooh. Right. Oh, that was good. Through me, then by me. Period. Come on now.
Yeah, like we're taking that, we're not being passive
Right.
in our appliance of patience with what you're
Exactly.
saying.
Yeah, because looking at like somehow how some of the religions, and since I like have experience like being a Christian and in this field of Christianity, or at least I should say westernized Christianity, um a lot of it is like it is this inactive, like you just have to wait for the good to come. Just
Hmm.
wait for the good to come, and that's all you need to just prepare yourself for that. That's patience. And for me, I'm like, cool, but what if the good doesn't come? Like, what if, can I just accept that also? That it, what if it's actually bad that comes? And then I know that gets into the whole like discussion of faith and everything. And I
Yeah.
get that. But for me, I'm like, well, what if patience is just, it's acceptance? And like, that's where my brain is at right now. And I know some people, I think in the spiritual world, or in the spiritual field of everything, kind of see patience and acceptance as like two separate things. But to me, it's like they are woven together. Like you can't
Hmm.
have one without the other. And
Right.
so to me, it's like, well, patience is acceptance, and the mixing of these will lead to peace. I feel like we're just accepting. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm doing. I'm not going to let this specific situation stop me from doing what I need to do, or doing what I feel like doing, or loving myself, being there for my community, whatever. But I'm definitely not gonna let it yeah, I'm not gonna let it stop me. But I am gonna sit in this, right? And just sit and be like, this is
Mm-hmm.
just where we're at right now. And we will move forward, but it takes some time. It's gonna take some
Yeah.
time, and I need to refocus essentially.
Yeah, and you know what I'm hearing that patience gives time for?
Mm-hmm.
Processing. Like
Yes.
you then have time to process some shit while you're being
Yes.
patient. And I think that's
Exactly.
another reason why we don't like to be patient.
Yes.
Because who likes to process hard shit? Not me. I'm putting my hand
Exactly.
down. I'm
Right.
hiding my hand, like yeah,
It's not
sitting
here.
on them.
Exactly. Because that makes me think like, for those of us who are like dating and stuff like that, I'm sure some people can attest, like the dating pool right now is terrible. It's like, what is going on? And it really leads to a lot of like feelings of like insecurity and doubt, and like, am I not good enough? Like, I don't understand, why does he feel comfortable messaging me this, like all of this kind of stuff. And it makes me think, if it's like, for some people, especially going from relationship to relationship, and it's just not working, it's like, well, maybe this is your sign of, you need to practice patience, because this will help you process like what you've all gone through, what you want in a relationship, what you don't want, instead of just going through these constant cycles with this same similar type of people, and you keep getting the same result. Is that not the definition of insanity? Like, come on now.
Look, I'm nodding through everything that you're saying, even though I've been married for 7 years, because this is my single friends, some of them.
Yes.
I'm like,
Yes.
yes, girl, yeah, everything that you're saying is what I've been saying to them. But yeah, like you have to learn to exercise patience and not feel rushed to just
Right.
have a
Right.
partner, or even, like we can even translate this to the job market, which is also kind of trash right now. Like I'm hearing
Exactly.
the same thing from
Yeah.
the dating and job markets. This is not your
Exactly.
playing field.
It's
So,
not it.
like, people are having a hard time also finding a position. I'm seeing
Yeah.
like posts from people being like, "Oh, I found a good job after 2 years of
Right.
looking for a new job," and
Right.
I'm just like, "Wow," you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I can't imagine the patience that you have to exercise in a position like that in a job
Right.
market like we have right now with the
Yeah.
economy and inflation the way it
Right.
is.
Right.
Child, now that's
Right.
exercising patience, okay?
Exactly.
And
Mm.
it's real and it's out there right now.
Yes. And I will say, like, I think a limitation, in like my research era, like the limitation to my theory or thinking of
Mhm.
patients would be like for people in situations where it's like, is it safe for me to be patient here? And I
Mm,
think that's where that discernment, as you had mentioned earlier, that discernment comes in of like, in a different way. Instead of being like, this is fear or is this fear,
mhm,
that it's more, is this safe for me? Because to me, especially working with kids for the last like 6 years, safety above all. Like before we can have fun, we need to be safe, and you have to show me that you can be safe. And so if you're in situations like, especially like at work, dealing with the world that we're in right now, and interacting with different types of personalities that can kind of be manipulative or low key abusive at work, that's not like oh, I need to be patient here. No, girl, get up
mm.
out of there. And then we go practice patience.
The way I was just thinking about this, and I recently was talking about it because
Uh-huh.
a lot of people's so I have another podcast episode
Hmm.
on another
Yes.
episode of the Hot
Hmm.
Girls Healing Podcast called Healing from the Status Quo. We were
Yeah.
talking, so running, y'all listen to that. But we were talking about, these work environments. And like
Hmm.
sometimes there's a dynamic that one person is creating, sometimes it's the
Right.
whole system.
Right.
So when it comes to exercising patience, are
Hmm.
you exercising patience and just doing your job until you can get out of here? Are you
Right.
exercising patience while you collect the evidence that you need so that you can take your own action while you get
Right.
out of here? But it's like
Exactly.
whatever you're going to be doing,
Right.
you need to make sure that the patience that you're exercising is beneficial to you because those systems
Hmm.
will chew us up and spit us back out. That's what they're made
Right.
to do, and they're very good at doing it. And so
Exactly.
when I'm always telling people in these toxic job environments,
Hmm.
sure, fight the system if that's what you feel called to do, if that's what you have the resources to do, and those
Right.
things are aligning. Absolutely. I
Right.
met this guy once who said he sued every one of his last previous employers in the city of Seattle, and he won every single time. And I said, I know that's
Wow.
he was a black
Right.
man, and he had
Period.
the resources and
Yes.
the ability to do so. And I said, that is amazing. That's
Right.
wonderful. Set those precedents so that when black people want to come behind you,
Exactly.
also sue, it's easier for them to do so
Right.
because
Yeah.
that's a path that we can take.
Hmm.
When we face discrimination, we can absolutely take that path
Right.
of challenging that system.
Hmm.
You can also just find yourself a new job, boo. Whatever is best
Right.
for you.
Whatever works best. Exactly. And I wonder if like the understanding of patience, I mean, I know it differs culturally, but I
Mhm.
wonder like within the US alone, like we're a melting pot as much as people don't want to acknowledge that. Like we are full of different ethnicities and groups.
Yes, we
So
are.
like I feel it. I think we all kind of have a general understanding of patience.
Mm.
If someone says the word patience, we kind of know what they're talking about. But I think we all exercise it differently. And I think even within the Black community, we all exercise patience differently. Like some of us are like, I have no patience. Like my dad's side of the family's in South Chicago, and I was asking them like, how do you define patience? And my uncle's like, I don't have it, but if I had to guess, I'm like, okay, fair enough. Like we love the self awareness, but like, some people I think within the Black community are just like, well, patience is just kind of tolerating. You're just tolerating now, especially with like our within the Black American community, like our deep rootedness, sorry, in Christianity.
Mm.
Um, I think like that's like we're tolerating now. We're tolerating the world. We're tolerating each other, because then after this, there's the heavenly, and this is
Mhm.
the goal. And I think some of us are like, well, what if patience is just acceptance, right? And others are like, well, I don't have patience because it means I have to accept people and everything that they are. And
Yeah.
that's where for me, I'm like, well, maybe it's an internal thing.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily supposed to be, it'll reflect externally, but it's got to start internally. If you don't have that for yourself, you can't give that to other people. If you don't have the ability to sit and just say, okay, let me just think about this, let me just process this, how are you going to have that for other people? Like that empathy that comes with it, you know? I don't know.
That's no, it's real. It's real, and it's tied to a lot of like self-reflection and like
Mhm.
knowing, because like when you talk about being like coming a Christian, like I was raised Christian by a mother who was
Yes.
raised Catholic, so it's just
Interesting.
but I'm so sorry. The
No,
way
yes.
that patience was presented to me as a child through the lens of
Mhm.
Christianity, it just set you up for so much just long suffering. And like, I just don't
Yeah.
got time for it. I'm
Yes.
like, so you telling me I'm gonna suffer my entire life on earth?
Right.
Girl, bye. Like,
Right. Like the whole time I'm here.
I was like, no, absolutely not. And here's why. I feel
Right.
like for me, I need balance in all things,
Right.
including patience.
Mhm.
Patience, yes, but for what and how long
Right. Yeah.
always matters to me.
Right.
And I think that when I am being patient,
Mhm.
it is for something. It's not
Yeah.
just to tolerate what I'm currently going through.
Right.
It is also as a tool, patience is
Yeah.
a tool, and
Yes.
too,
Period.
that we can use
Mhm.
meet our goals, to get the outcomes that we want in our lives, to build
Right.
the relationships that we want. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Patience is has been huge for my healing journey. When I
Yes.
first started, I remember I'm always trying to like go back and pinpoint like where do I feel like I really started like my self-love journey, which is like
Right.
my brand at this point.
Yes. Right.
And I'm like, okay, so I think 18 years old. I remember
Yeah.
when I was 18 years old, I was like, there's literally no fucking way that this is what my life is gonna be. Like I
Right.
know somebody's fucking lying to me right now. Like I know
Right.
somebody lying when they said this
Yeah.
was gonna be my life. And I literally said, I remember my life is only gonna get better from here. And
Mhm.
that was literally the year that my
Period.
life started getting better. Every single year my life has gotten better since I was 18 years old.
I love that.
And I think that
Yes.
was it.
Mhm. No, that makes a lot of sense. I love that. I think because it sounds like in that moment it was like a reclaiming of power. It was like this is, I don't want to do what everyone else is telling me I need to do, or because how everyone else is telling me I need to go about this isn't what's working for me. Like,
Mhm.
and I can relate to that so much because recently, like within, or I would say last year, going through situations and stuff where I'm reaching out to my support group, I had like realized that I was, instead of looking into myself and being like, well, this is how I want to handle this, this is how I want to go about this, I was like, I don't trust myself. I don't know why. I just don't trust myself to give me adequate validation and information about how to navigate this situation. So I'm going to go off of what everyone else is saying I should be doing, but then I would just end up more hurt because it's like, well, that works for them, but that doesn't work for me.
Mhm.
So maybe I need to start loving myself and
Yeah.
trusting that I know myself better than anyone else on this planet. I'm the one,
Damn.
right? Like I'm the one that's with me till the day I die. So like, why don't I just, hey, this works for me? Like, I know I shouldn't text him back, but I have words that I need to say. If I don't say them, it's gonna stick with me. Like, or
Mhm.
I know that I shouldn't go about it like this, go about the situation at work like this, but this is what works. This is how my brain operates, you know? And I think it's that level of when you can accept yourself like that and accept other people for how they are like that, the world is so much more peaceful. The world, it's, you're
Absolutely.
not as like impulsively like taking things personally, like, oh, well, you're not doing this, you're not doing this. You're not as concerned about all the bad stuff that, well, I mean, you're concerned about people if you know, care about your community, but like, you're not as concerned about like, oh, well, what are they doing? And what's the vibe here? Are they scheming? Are they planning? Or someone plotting on me? And it's like, when you reach this point where you're like, well, and if they are, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Like, to me, that's reflecting of patience, and that's even starting the journey of self-love and care, which I'm so proud of you for doing that, especially at 18. Like, it's a huge step towards being like, okay, well, yeah, bad shit's gonna happen, and I will get through it. I will
Yes.
get through it. Like, that's one thing I've absolutely adored when I was like a Christian and everything, was that like, I'm gonna get through this, right? Though it was tied in with like maybe some other not so great rhetoric. It was just like, I like this whole, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it. I'm making the most of the life that I have been given, and I'm gonna make it work the best that I absolutely can.
Yes, patience definitely helps you through those life transitions.
Mm-hmm.
And the quick ones and the long ones. You know, sometimes
Exactly.
a little transition just takes a couple of weeks or a month, and sometimes you're in a transitionary period for like 3 years. Either
Exactly.
way, patience will be helping you get through that. Patience will be
Right.
your best girlie,
Your best friend.
literally. And I honestly, God, it's so needed. I love that
Mm-hmm.
relationship that you start to develop with yourself
Mm-hmm.
during those times of exercising patience, how
Yeah.
motivational you can become. One
Mm-hmm.
thing that I always encourage people to do is be like your biggest cheerleader and your coach. Like, be
Yes,
both of those
exactly.
things for yourself.
Right.
And when you're being patient is when you need those sides of yourself to come through and motivate you and push you through until you start actually seeing the thing that you're being patient for. Because, you know, when I was 18 and I decided I wanted to be patient or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or love myself or heal
Yes.
or whatever it was I said I was going to do,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even really know what that looked like. I didn't know how long that was going to take. I didn't
Yeah.
know any of that, you know?
Yeah.
It took a long time. It takes a long time to
The,
process hurt. Like,
yeah.
you'll literally be processing one hurt and then you'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
I done healed that shit. Years
Exactly.
later, you're like,
Like, oh,
I didn't heal that all the way.
did I actually heal this? I don't
And guess what? You gonna have to pop up and be patient with yourself once again,
exactly.
and just be with yourself and process
Yes.
through that.
Right.
And that's why it's so important.
Yes. Oh, I 100% agree. It's like um because most of the world religions kind of, well, I would say, I guess, the Abrahamic religion, so like
Mm-hmm.
Judaism, Christianity, and Islam,
Mm-hmm.
all kind of see patience as like there's a reward for patience. And I think they're on to something. I think it's a little different than like the idea of what that reward is, for at least in my eyes.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
to me, that reward is like, it's the beauty of being a human, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's, there's so, as I've also been going through this like self-healing journey, there's so many moments where I'm like, oh my Lord, I'm a human being and this is cool. Like, I get to learn things. I get to do things and then learn and adapt and grow,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe share it with like the next generation that's coming up, or just people around me. But like, there's just something so peaceful and beautiful about accepting humanity as we are, you know what I mean? And accepting like, this
Yes.
is, I am a part of this group. Like, we are all here going through all of this stuff, maybe not together and unfairly in many situations,
Mm-hmm.
but we are all human. I don't know, like, oh, I
And
love
no,
it.
it's beautiful. And it's a deeply decolonized practice.
Yeah.
So I also want to shout that out. You know, shout
Yes.
out to the ancestors, shout out to
Right.
indigenous people for always
Yes.
knowing that truth.
Mm-hmm.
I also really love this part where you're talking about the reward of exercising patience,
Mm-hmm.
because I also agree that, you know, sometimes the reward of exercising patience is that you start that business that you always
Right.
wanted to, or you go on
Right.
that vacation that you were saving up for, or
Yes. Like something tangible.
you ask out that person that you whatever.
Right.
Okay, so but
Right.
and also sometimes the only reward for the patience is
Mm-hmm.
that you are better for having being patient.
Exactly. Exactly.
Sometimes the reward is that you could have spent months suffering and agonizing and having anxiety before the thing happened. And instead,
Exactly.
you were just cool and you took
You're
some walks
chilling.
and you enjoyed the
Exactly.
breeze and you talked with friends, and then the thing happened.
Exactly. Like it seems as if patience is a way to just say like, slow down. Slow down and like accept what's around you, take in where you're at in this moment. Just take like slow down. You don't need to get over there quite yet. We'll get there, but take your time. Enjoy life. Because I think especially in western societies, there's always this like you need to be thinking further ahead. You need to be thinking, one of my dad's favorite questions to me at the most random moments, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I don't know. Why are you making me predict the future? I don't do that. Like, leave me
Exactly.
alone. Like, oh, yes, I have my goal, but I'm not going to reach this goal in 5 years. Leave me alone. Him and I go back and forth. It's ridiculous. But that's just so ingrained. I feel like in Western societies, you just always need to
Mm-hmm.
be thinking about what's next, what's next. And some of our countries and stuff have systems that are specifically designed for people to not be able to focus and just sit in the moment. But I think when you're able to do that, although you're in an environment where like you're gonna have some adversity to that, being able to say, okay, I'm I'm going to live my life, right? My job wants me to work 40 hours a week. That takes up most of my time. I'm going to ensure that I go outside. I mean, even if it's during my lunch break, I've got 30 to 45 minutes. Let me go outside real quick and just sit on the grass. Let me go for a walk after work. Let me take my dog to wherever park we need to, like taking those little moments in life to practice patience and to practice the ability of I feel like the practice of patience is just slowing down and just like grounding yourself and centering yourself as to where you currently are, because it just makes dealing with life, not even dealing with life, but just living life bearable,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes. And it
Yeah.
helps you to be present. Like, I
Mhm.
like what you're saying about not always wanting to focus. Like, I'm a strategic planning queen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I literally am getting some of my friends together for strategic planning later today. I shit you not. Okay,
Right,
but
right.
you have to be present in the moment.
Yes.
Yesterday, I didn't allow myself to even think about strategic planning. I didn't
Right.
think about my business. I didn't think about none of
Mhm.
that. I said, today's for you. I did
Right.
my hair. Me and my husband
Mhm.
went and we did a little sip and paint at the park.
I
I
love
was talking to
that.
him about a newfound love of watercolor paint. Like,
Yes.
be for what you're doing right now is what I tell
Yes.
myself. Because if we get
Yes.
so caught up in
Mhm.
thinking about 5 years from now,
Right.
what you gonna be doing? Thinking about
Exactly.
5 years from now, not being present in what you were going there to be present in. So
Exactly.
practice being present
Yes.
and accepting where you are,
Yes.
right? Even if that's not where you want to be, because
Mhm.
accepting that you're not where you want to be is
Right.
also going to be helpful for you. That knowledge,
Yes.
because you're going to be able to move accordingly and start to
Exactly.
choose, as Shiaan
Right.
was saying earlier, the things that
Exactly.
are in alignment with what you want.
Mhm. Cuz moving when you're so focused on the future, I feel like that's where the impatience comes from. That's where that
Mhm.
instant gratification, like need for instant gratification, starts to come in, where it's like, so I have to wait. I don't want to wait. Like, I want that now. Why can't I have that now? And then this is, I know we were talking about this earlier, but patience and acceptance of, or I guess, yeah, accepting delayed gratification just kind of
Mhm.
go hand in hand. Because it's like, that's when you are someone that's so in need of instant gratification constantly to keep yourself stimulated throughout your life, you'll find yourself in these cycles and in these situations where they're not fully serving you because it's instant. It's coming as quickly as it's going. Like,
Mhm.
that's all that it is, and that's all that it's going to be. But there's so much more reward, and there's so much more benefit for things like when you're that are long term, that take a little bit longer, that require you to sit down and think, okay, is this what I really want? Is this what I really need? Do I want to be in a relationship with someone that does not match my communication style and we just don't work? Do I want to stay at a job that I'm working a lot, but I'm getting very little recognition for it? Like, is this what I envisioned for myself? Is this what I want for myself? And I think patience is also accepting that you might have what you've envisioned and wanted for yourself, but it might not come to the way that you want it. You know what I mean? Like it might
Mm-hmm.
not come to fruition the way that you were thinking it will, or the way that you're really wanting it will. And it's that acceptance of, so that's just not, that wasn't for me. That's what I thought I wanted, but that just wasn't for me, and that's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. And we just keep moving, we keep pushing. It doesn't stop your life, right? It doesn't have to be a stop to your life. You continue moving forward.
Yeah.
Like, one of my favorite, I always tell people this. I love 21 Pilots. That's my favorite band. People are very surprised sometimes when they hear me say that. But I'm like, when you really listen to their music and you really listen to like what, especially in the order of the albums more recently, there's a lot of story and world building happening. In the most recent album, it's my favorite one because it talks about when you're on the healing journey and you get to that point where you're like, I've made so much progress. What's happening? Why am I backtracking? Why am I going back to the things that I was doing before? I don't want to do that. I don't want to backslide. There's a whole song called Backslide. Like, how do I get back to I'll make continuously making that progress and that linear experience that a lot of people just think healing is. And it's like, no, this is a part of it, because you're going down, you have to learn, and now we're going back up. It's a lot of this. It is up and down.
Yeah.
But they have this one song called Oldie Station, and it's essentially the writer of the song, Tyler, I believe he's telling himself, like, he says one of the lines, like, the only consistency is something and then the bridge of your nose. Like, it's very minimal things, very small things in life that are going to stay the same in your life. Everything is always changing. Some of like your favorite songs are playing on different radio stations, like all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's all this change around you, but you are still making it. You must keep pushing through the change, through the transitions. You've made it this far. Keep going, right?
Yeah.
He has a kid now, or he has two kids now, and one of the lines he says, like, you've made it to her first dance recital or something like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, when I realized who he was talking about, I was like, oh, wow, because that's the reward of patience,
Yeah.
especially working in the field of mental health, interacting especially with kids and teenagers who are dealing with like some intense mental health stuff like suicidal ideation and suicidality. It's really hard for them, and for a lot of people dealing with that as well, to recognize that that's the reward of patience, the reward of, you got to stay here. Like, stay here, don't give up yet, because you will get to the point where you're going to see the beauty in all that is life. You will get to that point, regardless of the circumstance that you're in. You're going to get there. It's a matter of, and I hate to say, it sounds like, oh, just wait it out, but it's like, not necessarily just wait it out, don't sit here and do nothing. It's continue to live your life,
Yeah.
continue to keep going through all of these changes and this turmoil and these rough patches. It doesn't stop you from being who you are, right? It's telling
Absolutely.
you to slow down.
Yes.
So yeah.
And what I'm also hearing a little bit is release control, and our
Yeah.
need for control, and
Hmm.
release that anxiety that tells you that you have control to lose anyway, because honestly, we ain't got
Right.
that much control. So,
Exactly, like we were saying earlier. Like, it's a lot of how people talk about understanding patience is exercising it um, towards others, as an expression towards others
hmm,
instead of towards yourself. And
yeah,
it's like you are exercising something towards things that you just can't control. you can control yourself.
Yeah.
Start there. Start there, and then we can talk about what everyone else has got going on. And even then, once you start there, you're not going to want
Period.
to even go talk about what other people
Yeah,
have going on.
I like you luring them in with saying start there, because you're never
Mhm.
leaving there. Once
You're
you
never
start with
leaving.
yourself, you realize it is a full-time job. Once I
Exactly.
started managing my own emotions,
Mhm.
getting control over myself,
Right.
like there's a lot of really weird toxic dynamics that
Mhm.
I realized were happening in my
Mhm.
closest relationships once I started to heal
Yeah.
myself and realize that, like, this idea of having control over other people is an illusion anyway, and a toxic one
Right.
at that. You're not making anyone do anything ever. The only person
Exactly.
you can control is you.
Is you.
That is it.
Right.
I mean, okay, when we get children involved, y'all,
Right.
I take
Right.
responsibility, because
That's a
yes, you
different story.
actually can make kids do things and their
Exactly.
brains are not developed all the way. But we're
Yeah.
talking about adults here.
Right.
Accountable
Right.
adults. You have to be responsible for your emotions.
Mhm.
You have to be responsible for your actions.
Mhm.
And you have to be responsible for whatever your emotions and actions lead you to do it.
Right.
All your responsibility. And
All your
once you start
responsibility.
taking your responsibilities and managing those things, like you said, Shiaan, you do not
Mhm.
have time or energy to manage those things for nobody else.
Exactly. I used to tell kids, working in when I was working in the psych unit, um, like your your mental health is your responsibility. Like it's not an excuse, it's an explanation, and it is not on me to keep you here. I can physically keep you here. Like that's part of my job, right?
Mhm.
But for you to be here, that's on you. I can't make you do anything. And for
Mhm.
some people, they're just so used to growing up in environments where they've been told, I
Right.
have to make you do this, I'm gonna make you do this. So
Mhm.
they get in that, like, okay, well, yeah, you have to do it or else I can't. And it's like, no, 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 no. You have the power over yourself. I can't make you do anything. I can I might have to intervene if you're going to start harming yourself. Yeah, I'm going to have to step in cuz that's my job, right? But ultimately to live life and to exist and to be here, that's up to you. I don't get to make that decision. And as someone who has dealt with like suicidality and suicidal ideation, for me that was in high school. Those It's hard to kind of fit that in your head, like, yes,
Mhm.
I have that control, because you feel so hopeless and you feel so like left behind and you feel so lonely that you're like, there's no one here to help me. I'm on my own. But now that I'm where I'm at now, I'm like, actually, I'm on my own. I love to tell myself I did the damn thing. Like, oh my
Yeah.
god, like I am on my own. I am making this work. I am progressing in life. And I one of the biggest things that I've done to help me practice patience is to kind of how I talk about my younger self, and even if it's like myself yesterday, I'm
Yeah.
very very much. I tell people I'm like, ease up on my girl, okay? That's my girl.
Every
You
time.
leave her alone. She
Yes.
was trying her best, given the situation that she was in. Or especially if it's like newer stuff, like when I first started dating, and people were like, "Oh my God, Cheyenne, that was." I'm like, hey, now, that Cheyenne, she was going through some things and she had things she needed to figure out. Let her figure it out. Or
Yeah.
even my younger self, like, so, diagnosed with ADHD as an adult, and as I've learning more about how ADHD presents in female presenting people,
Mhm.
especially as children, I see so much of like, wow, so I had it. They just weren't clocking it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but I think about my younger self and I'm like, man, this girl was just not stimulated. This girl was doing everything that she could. No fault of my parents. Like, they were trying their
Mhm.
best, especially as Black Americans in healthcare. It's like, no, I'm not going to put my child on Adderall. Are you crazy?
Mhm.
Like, if that's the only option, then we'll figure something else out, type of thing. But that's like a huge part of like healing for me and understanding patience. And when I say like have patience with yourself, is like forgiving yourself and accepting that that's what it was at the time. That's just
Mm-hmm.
what you had to do to survive.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like, and I often think about like what younger me would think about me right now. And I think younger me would be like, I'm surprised you're here. Like, I'm surprised we made it this far. I'm surprised
Real.
there was a continuation after high school. I'm surprised there was a continuation after undergrad. I'm surprised there was a continuation after last week. Like what, like we just keep going and we keep progressing, and it sucks for so many people that weren't able to do that, and like now that they're gone. And for me, that's like, we need to celebrate the life that they did have while they were here. But it also is a testament of like, we need to keep going, we have to
Yeah.
keep progressing, we have to keep moving forward. So
Yes. And
yeah.
stay curious,
Yeah.
stay
100%.
open to what our life can be,
Yes.
even if
Yeah.
you don't know what. I always tell, because child, my
Mhm.
husband, he always know what he don't want, girl. Let's
Right.
figure that. So even if all you know is what you don't know,
Right.
or what you don't want,
Yes.
start there by
Right.
flipping the opposite of each of those things to what you do want instead, and then focus on
Exactly.
that side of the list.
Exactly. And that's a good, ooh, I might use that in therapy. That's
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm hearing a lot of negatives. Let's talk about the opposites of these. Is this
And,
what
and
you want?
and sometimes that's where you got to start, because when
Yeah.
I even wanted to start with like affirmations, which is like one of the
Right.
very basic things that I started with, or
Right.
actually maybe not, maybe I started with like manifestation, because I used
Mm.
to daydream my little ass off when I was
Yes.
in elementary and middle school. All I thought
Yes.
about was what I wanted my future life to look like.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh shoot, was I manifesting my 20s and 30s? Because
Right. Like, wait a minute.
um so definitely manifesting and daydreaming if you
Mm-hmm.
can.
Right.
Just think about what you
Right.
want your life to look like. Think about what you want your relationship with your parent to be,
Right. Right.
because that's a place where, child, just the way
Right.
things have been set up and the way events have
Exactly.
transpired,
Right. Right.
we all got something in that area, right?
Yes,
So think
exactly.
about, imagine what you would want an interaction with your parent to go like.
Mm-hmm.
What are you saying? What are you feeling? What are
Mm-hmm.
you seeing? What are you smelling in the air? Like, is
Yeah.
there a candle lit? What is your parents'
Right.
perfume sounding, or perfume or cologne smelling
Right.
like to you? So
Right.
these are like things that we can do. These are going to help you with exercising patience. I also like to do that in a meditation state.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm manifesting, I like to meditate a lot, and while I'm meditating, I'll visualize, and then this
Yeah.
visualization becomes deeper, and then I'm thinking about what I'm feeling and what I'm smelling and those things.
Right.
When it
Mm-hmm.
comes to affirmations, again, starting with that very small list, or shoot, it might be long, because back in the day, I used to be like, okay, so I'm not gonna be delusional, and this is what's happening. This is what's happening. So I don't know about no
Right.
speak what you want into existence stuff.
Yes. Right.
Me back in the day. So look, like, if what's happening is what's happening, then you can say one day this
Mm-hmm.
is what will be happening.
Right.
And that's what I had to say. I'd be like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, well, one day it's going to be like this. And
Yes.
whatever that one day is, make that your ideal and keep speaking that into existence.
Yes.
What other tips do you have for helping people exercise patience?
I would say, ooh, my favorite thing is journaling.
Mm,
I If it's not apparent, I have a lot of thoughts going on all the time, and it could get a little much, and that's what leads me to being impulsive and like needing that instant gratification. There's too much happening up
mm,
here, and so for me, my biggest thing is journaling, and it doesn't have to be like writing an entry type of thing. For me, I'm like have my journal open now. It can be like there's a topic that I want to look into, like patience and how the different cultures understand patience. I'm gonna journal about it.
mm,
One of my favorite things to do is to listen to a song and then doodle the song as I go, like for one line, and just kind of draw like little things that come to mind as I'm listening to that song. I found that that helps me ground myself and slow myself down a little bit, um, as well as just writing like I'm feeling this and I'm thinking this. That was a big thing for me, was differentiating between what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking. Because a lot of the times when you ask people like how are you feeling, they'll say, well, I'm feeling like so and so doesn't do, and it's like you're thinking that. I want to know what you're feeling. Identifying those feelings and accepting those feelings as like not bad things, whether it's anxiety, depression, anger, the negative feelings, recognizing that they're not bad, they're communicative. All of your feelings are communicative. It's something within your brain and your body telling you, your brain and your body, information. If you're feeling anxious about a situation, be like, oh, clock that. Like, oh, maybe this isn't safe for me. Why am I feeling anxious in this situation? Maybe this isn't a safe environment for me. It's very like listening to your intuition at the same time of being like, okay, this situation, this type of communication style frustrates me. I don't really think this is a communication style that I'm going to spend a lot of time engaging in. A lot of just understanding yourself and understanding how your body communicates with you. And a lot of that can be discovered through journaling. So write it down, girl. Write it down.
Ooh, now journaling was one of those ones that's like, it's so powerful, and it was so hard for me to get into.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you can, because you like have to face yourself. It's just you and you when you're
It's just
journaling,
you
and
and
I'm like,
you.
wait, but
Right.
if I have to get to know myself, then I have to think about the things that I don't want to think about.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, journaling, I get that. Because I know for me, for a while, I would be like, I guess as a way to avoid that thought of like, it's just me and me, I would be like, well, someone in the future could find this journal and then they're going to read it and use this as like historical evidence. So
That's
let me be
actually
super proper.
That's what I'm doing now. I'm like, oh, this is for my descendants. Even my
Exactly.
podcast. I'm like, even if no one listens to my podcast for the
Right.
entire time that I'm alive, which,
Yes.
already, people are already listening to it. So
Exactly.
I'm safe from that
Exactly.
one. But I was like, even if that happens, when they're mining for data in the future,
Yeah.
even if none of my descendants sign it, one day when the robots are mining for data, they will find my podcast.
Exactly. So I got to be careful what I say. And it's like, girl, just say what you want to say. It's just you. You don't have to avoid yourself. It's just you. And then when you're able to be like, okay, let me be real, then you start to see like the parts of yourself that you've like shamed for so long, and it's like, man, I shouldn't shame myself for being who I am, or why am I shaming myself for this situation that only I know about, right? Or this behavior that only I know about. And it leads you to, I don't know, unpacking that. And I think it's great to unpack that and to just really sit and be like, why do I shame myself for XYZ? Is it because of religious trauma? Is it because of like abuse from the past? Is it just because the environment I was raised in, the culture I was raised in? Like, there's a whole lot to kind of unpack and understand about yourself as an individual. And I think it's very beautiful. And journaling, it's very helpful because you got record of it. And going back and looking at things, especially like years later, you're like, oh wow, this is where that ease up on my girl, okay? Like, she was doing the best that she could given the circumstances that she was in. Leave her alone.
Yes. I am, newer to journaling, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm on like the last 2 pages of my very first journal. And I
Yay!
recently went back and like read earlier in the journal, and I was like, wow, like even in the little over a year that I've been writing in this one
Mm-hmm.
journal, I feel like I've, become this different person and have grown
Yes.
so much. So what you're saying
Yeah.
is absolutely true.
I
And,
love
you
it.
got to exercise the patience of finishing that journal and writing for years
Yeah.
before you can even have that level of reflection. So it's all,
Right. Exactly. Ugh, exactly. That consistency is important.
yes.
Yeah.
Dang, Shiaan.
Listen, it's almost like I'm in the right profession.
It almost is. It's almost like somebody need to pay this girl. Like,
Right. It's almost
hold
like.
on. Is there anything that we haven't said about exercising patience that you feel like we should still get into?
I will say, I think the last thing is, it isn't, from my journey in understanding patience, I realized everyone has their own understandings of patience. So, like, if someone's listening and they're like, oh, so this is what patience is? This is what patience is to Cheyenne. This is how Cheyenne sees patience, right? This is how Salenna sees patience.
Yes.
You yourself have to be able to identify that for yourself. These values, these ways of living, that's your responsibility. It's your life. You got to understand, like, patience, it's not like there's no one size fits all. It's, this is how I see patience. This is how I deal with patience. As, like, my uncle says, he doesn't have any patience. He has some. It just looks different than how other people have traditionally looked at or defined patience.
Yes.
It is all up to the eye of the beholder.
Yes. And like, patience is your power to wealth,
Yeah.
like patience should be to the benefit,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the ways you can tell if this is patience or if it's fear.
Yes.
Is it to the
Right.
benefit of yourself, your community, your family,
Mm-hmm.
the project you're working on, whatever it is?
Exactly. Exactly. This was so great. Thank you
Yeah,
for
girl, who
having
you
me.
telling? I'm just like, when are you gonna hang out with me?
Right, like, Cheyenne, come over.
But
We will, the next thing. I will be
yeah,
there.
but Cheyenne, thank you so much for having this conversation with
Yeah.
me. Healing community, thank y'all for tuning in.
Thank y'all for
Um,
having me. This was
if this is
great.
your first episode, I hope you come and listen to another one. And if you've been listening for a while, thank you so much, because y'all are the reason why I'm here. And Cheyenne, girl.
I told you, a lot of thoughts are going on up there constantly. I'm like, ooh, that's connecting and that's connecting. That
No,
makes
and
sense.
it's so good though, because
Yes.
patience is one of those things that, we always hear patience is a virtue our entire life, but like,
Right.
what does that even mean for me, really? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
What does exercising patience lead to in my life? How is it beneficial? I feel like you helped me, and hopefully some of the folks listening answer those
Mm.
questions today.
I hope so too, and I'm glad. I'm glad. Whatever impact that I have, that's positive. I'm gonna, I'm gonna love that.
Yes. How can people like connect with you in real life, or hire
Hmm.
you to come speak, or be like a keynote
Ooh.
at a graduation or something, right?
Yes, I would say the best way is to reach out on Instagram. My Instagram is Cheyenne H. So it's Cheyenne, Shaiann, H as in hog. I don't know why. That's the first animal that I could think of. But Cheyenne H. And you can just send me a DM or send me a message, and then we could go from there. That's the
Yeah.
best way, I would say. Yeah.
I love to hear it. This has been such a pleasure.
Yes,
Y'all,
it's
this has been
great.
another episode of the Hot Girls Healing Podcast, and I'm your host, Salenna Green. I'll see y'all next time. Cheyenne, I'll see you out in the community.
See you
People,
later.
I hope that y'all are safe and loved and connected. Holla at your girl. I'll be out here. Hashtag healing in community, hashtag Hot Girls Healing on social media.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. it our way.
Hot girls healing.
We better day by day.
Hot girls healing.
We doing it our way.
Hot girls healing.
And it goes